I want to settle a debate right now. Is Tomcat Alley a bad game, or is it just misunderstood? I've seen it called a masterpiece and a complete disaster, and after spending way too many hours with it, I think both sides are wrong. This game sits in a weird space between movie and game, something far more interesting than either label suggests. So stick around for a debriefing on the one FMV game that almost delivered the Hollywood dream, complete with a secret lost version you've never seen. The Sega CD was a big deal when it came out. It wasn't just about better sound or bigger games. The CD format meant storage, lots of it. And that storage opened the door to something we've only dreamed about: full motion video in a game. The promise was simple and intoxicating. What if you could actually play a movie? What if you could be inside the action, not just watching it from the couch? Tomcat Alley was one of the games that tried to deliver on that promise. It was developed by the Code Monkeys and published by Sega in 1994, and it holds a pretty unique place in gaming history. It was the first Sega CD game to feature extensive full-screen, full-motion video. In fact, it was the only Sega CD game to do full-screen FMV. Let me show you what that actually meant when you popped the disc in. Now, the idea of a game that looked like a movie wasn't completely new. If you spent any time in the arcades in the 80s, you might remember a game called Mach 3. It used Laserdisc technology to play back pre-recorded footage while you controlled a crosshair on the screen. It felt like magic. Like the future, it arrived early. Tomcat Alley reminded me of that feeling right away. The grainy video, the live action actors, the sense that you were controlling something that was happening on a screen in Hollywood. It all came flooding back, and let's be honest, for a kid who grew up on that stuff, seeing it in your living room on a Sega CD was a revelation. And here's what's interesting. That feeling of wonder is exactly what the developers were going for. And for 1994, they kind of nailed it, which brings me to the game itself. What is Tomcat Alley actually like to play? So here's the thing, it's not really a video game in the traditional sense, it's more like an interactive movie. You play as a radar intercept officer, call sign Kid, sitting in the back of an F-14X Tomcat. You're part of a cocky squadron trying to stop a renegade Soviet commander named Colonel Povich, who's threatening the US with chemical weapons from a base in the Mexican desert. You control the action by moving a crosshair around the screen and locking on the targets. You fire the missiles, select the waypoints, and switch between air and ground modes. But you never actually pilot the jet. The footage is already filmed, you're just triggering the next scene. It's a gallery shooter disguised as a flight sim, but here's where it gets tricky. The aiming reticle bobs around like you're flying through turbulence, and locking onto enemies can be frustratingly imprecise. Miss a shot and you'll run out of missiles or fuel, and some missions only give you one chance to hit a target, which is annoying when the auto-aim decides to disengage at the worst possible moment. The game can be pretty unforgiving, so that's the basic loop. But what does that actually feel like for a few hours? Let's just say you're gonna see some familiar faces. I've got to be real about something. Tomcat Alley is repetitive. You see the same scenes over and over. The same takeoff footage, the same pilot character, and the same grainy explosions. And the video quality itself is, well, blocky. It's grainy. Sometimes it's genuinely hard to watch. The sound effects repeat endlessly, and during cutscenes, the voice track can get completely drowned out by the music. But here's the thing, even with all of that, there's something about it that keeps you going. The mission variety is actually better than you'd expect. One mission has you blowing up bridges. Another has you taking recon photos. There's even a hidden rescue mission if you fail a certain objective. And the explosions are satisfying in that cheesy 90s action movie way. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. And for a lot of us back in 1994, it was as close as we were ever going to get to living in Top Gun. Which brings me to the big question. Does this game still hold up, or is it just a nostalgia trap? I mean, Tomcat Alley wears its Top Gun inspiration on its sleeve. The game was literally designed around the F-14 Tomcat, and the designers clearly wanted to create a playable version of that movie. Some of the explosion footage even looks like it could have come straight from the film, and for a certain kind of player, the fighter jet jockey, the kid who drew F-14s in his notebooks, this game was pure catnip. It felt novel, it was exciting, and it felt like you were part of something bigger than just a game. And look, the critics at the time agreed. GamePro named Tomcat Alley as the best Sega CD game at the 1994 Consumer Electronics Show. They said the demo was stunning and that you actually felt like you were flying inside the Tomcat. They later gave it a perfect score. But here's the other side of the coin. Other reviewers weren't so kind. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a largely negative review, and modern retrospectives, they're all over the place. One site gave it a very low score, another called it decent and addictive, so who's right? Well, here's what I think. It depends on what you're looking for. For all its flaws, it's actually one of the better FMV games on the Sega CD. The controls are smooth, the actors are halfway decent, and the game introduces a degree of randomness that keeps each playthrough feeling a little different. You're not just watching a movie, you're making choices that affect what happens next. And when you're into the rhythm of it, when you learn which weapons to use and when to switch modes, it's actually invigorating. You feel like you're in command, like you're the one calling the shots. Now, it's not a deep game, it's not a complex game, but it is a fun game, and sometimes that's enough, especially when you're a busy adult with limited time and energy and you just want to blow up some MiGs and feel like a hero for 20 minutes. But I've got one more story for you, and it's about the version of this game that almost was. I'm talking about the version that never came out. A 32X port was in development. It was even announced at Sega Gamers Day in 1994, but it never materialized. The 32X version would have been called Tomcat Alley Deluxe, and it's one of those what-if stories that retro gaming fans love to speculate about. Would the improved hardware have made the video look better? Would the gameplay have been any different? We'll never know. Now, there was a PC version that did eventually come out in 1995 that had much higher video quality, but the 32X version remains a ghost. It was a promise that was made and then broken, and honestly, that kind of adds to the mystique of the whole thing. Alright, so here's where I land on Tomcat Alley. It's not a masterpiece. It's repetitive and the video's grainy. The gameplay's kind of shallow, but it's also really fun. It's a reminder of a moment when we all believed that full motion video was the next big thing, and for those of us who grew up watching Top Gun and dreaming of flying F-14s, it's a chance to relive that fantasy, even for just a little while. It's not going to change your life, but it might just make you smile, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. But what about you? Did you play Tomcat Alley back in the day? Or are you one of the lucky ones who missed it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories, and I really do read every single one. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.